April 17th, 1999. The New Orleans Saints are on the clock, and head coach Mike Ditka does something that nobody in that building can believe. He trades 5 rounds of draft picks, an entire future, handed over to the Washington Redskins, all for the right to move up and select one player. Ricky Williams, the Heisman Trophy winner, the most hyped college running back in a decade. The media loved it, the fans loved it. But meanwhile, in Indianapolis, the Colts quietly walked up to the podium with the 4th overall pick, and they chose a running back out of the University of Miami with dreadlocks and a gold tooth smile that said he wasn't apologizing for anything. His name was Edgerrin James, and in the sports media ecosystem of 1999, nobody cared. Ricky Williams was the story. The hype was deafening. But here's what the media didn't understand. The Colts didn't make a mistake that night. They drafted the final piece of a missing dynasty. Let's set the scene. It's 1999. Peyton Manning is entering his 2nd year in the league. He threw 28 interceptions as a rookie. The Colts finished 3-13. The fan base was restless. And now, they're replacing Marshall Faulk, who was just traded to the Rams, with a first-year back and a 4th overall pick nobody was talking about. No safety net, no easing in, just a rookie, a struggling franchise, and everything on the line. By the time the season ended, there was nothing left to debate. 1,553 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, 586 receiving yards out of the backfield. As a rookie, he won the rushing title his first year, beat out veterans who'd been in the league for a decade, led the entire NFL in yards from scrimmage. Edgerrin James wasn't just a runner, he was a weapon. He could pass protect, he could line up in the slot, he could beat a safety in space or grind out a 3rd and 1 in the trenches. Whatever Manning needed, Edge could do it. Peyton Manning has talked at length about what James meant to that offense. When you had a back who defenses had to account for in every formation, on every down, the passing lanes opened up, the linebackers hesitated, the safeties crept up. That was the design. That was Edge's gift. And he came back in 2000 and did it again. 1,709 rushing yards, back-to-back rushing titles, back-to-back first-team All-Pro selections. Only the 2nd running back in NFL history to win the rushing crown in each of his first 2 seasons. The other, Eric Dickerson. The company Edgerrin James was keeping in year 2 of his career should have made him a household name forever. Instead, the world was about to look away. Here's something that gets lost in the modern NFL conversation. People remember Peyton Manning's arm. They remember Marvin Harrison's routes. They remember the Colts as a passing team. But the reason that passing team worked was a running back who made defenses play honest. The Colts ran what's called the stretch play. You use the running back's patience and vision to force the defense to commit, to collapse the backside or open up the cutback. If a linebacker over pursues, James cuts back and there's nobody home. If they stay disciplined, Manning has Harrison one-on-one somewhere on the field. Pick your poison. You couldn't win. And James was perfect for that system. He had elite patience. He never forced the issue. He waited for blocks to develop while moving at 3/4 speed, then he'd hit the hole at full burst and be gone. But then came October 2001. Non-contact, knee injury. His ACL snaps. In 2001, an ACL tear wasn't what it is today. There was no 9-month rehabilitation process. No success rate data to point at. No veteran who tore his ACL at the peak of his powers and came back whole on the other side. In 2001, for a speed back whose entire game was built on burst, this was supposed to be the end. He played in 2002. He played in 2003. He was still good, productive by any reasonable standard. But the explosiveness, the guy who was threatening to rewrite the record books, that player hadn't come back yet. And the critics, the same ones who called his draft selection a mistake in 1999, were back. They said his window had closed. They said the injury had taken too much. They were wrong. 2004, Edgerrin James walks back out onto the field as a different player. Not slower, smarter. The ACL had taken something. He knew it. But what he'd done in those 2 years of grinding through subpar performances, he rebuilt his game from scratch. He became a processor, a back who reads defenses instead of just outrunning them. Back-to-back 1,500-yard seasons, post-ACL, 3 years after everyone wrote him off. Let me be clear about what that means. Running backs who tear their ACLs don't come back at that level. It doesn't happen. The drop and burst, the hesitation at the line, the inability to plant and cut at full speed, those things linger. Edgerrin James erased all of it through sheer will and refinement. And in 2005, the Colts built the best offense in the league around him and Peyton Manning. 14 wins, the best regular season record in football, a first-round playoff bye, the Lombardi Trophy seemingly waiting for them. And then they lost, at home, to a Steelers team that would go on to win the Super Bowl. It was Edgerrin James' last game as a Colt. He never got his ring in Indy, and after 5 years, over 7,000 yards, and everything he had given that franchise, the Colts let him walk. Bill Polian wanted to get younger at the position. They drafted Joseph Adai in the first round, and Edgerrin James, the guy who built the foundation of that dynasty, flew south to the desert. The Arizona Cardinals. In 2006, that name didn't inspire fear. It inspired sympathy. A franchise that hadn't won a playoff game since 1998. A young receiving core in Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Boldin that had the talent but no experienced anchor in the backfield. People thought Edgerrin James was going to Arizona to collect a paycheck and disappear quietly into retirement. He had different plans. What the Cardinals got wasn't just a running back. They got a veteran who understood what it meant to play within a system. 2008, the NFL world wasn't paying attention to Arizona. Then they beat Atlanta. James pounds out over 100 yards, steady, physical, everything the Cardinals needed to control the clock while Warner and Fitzgerald did damage through the air. Then they beat Philadelphia in the NFC Championship. Edgerrin James was going to the Super Bowl. Not with the Colts, not with Peyton Manning, with the Arizona Cardinals. And the game delivered everything the country hoped for. Back and forth. A late lead in the fourth quarter that felt like, for just a moment, like maybe the Cardinals were going to pull this off. Then, San Antonio Holmes happened. 27-23. The Steelers win. Edgerrin James finishes one play away. Some players don't get the ending they deserve. Edge was one of them. Here's what Edgerrin James left behind. 12,246 career rushing yards. Top 15 all time. 80 rushing touchdowns. Over 400 receptions out of the backfield. 4 Pro Bowls. 2 rushing titles in his first 2 seasons. A Super Bowl appearance at age 30 with a franchise that had been irrelevant for 20 years. In 2020, 21 years after the night everyone said Bill Polian made a mistake, Edgerrin James was introduced into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In his speech, he didn't talk about the rushing titles. He didn't talk about the stats. He talked about doing it his way, about being himself, unapologetically, completely, in a league that constantly tried to tell him who he should be. And here's what gets me every time I think about this story. Peyton Manning gets the credit for that dynasty, and he deserves it. But Manning himself has never been shy about it. Without Edge controlling the line of scrimmage, forcing defenses to choose between stopping the run or stopping the pass, the offense doesn't work the way it worked. The structure of that dynasty ran through the backfield. And the man in that backfield, he doesn't get talked about enough. Not even close. Edge wasn't the loudest. He wasn't the flashiest. He didn't need the spotlight. But from 1999 to 2005, through injuries, through doubts, through a league that always seemed to underestimate him, there was no more complete back in football. He wasn't just a giant of his era. He was the standard. Be honest, before this video, did you have Edgerrin James in your top 10 running backs of all time? Drop your answers in the comments, because I think the case is stronger than people realized. If you're new here, we tell the stories the NFL has started to forget. Subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss the next one. This is the Game Day Giants. I'll see you in the next one.